dark night of the soul. Looking at the pictures with hateful disgust, Melissa turned another page of the History of Torture's booklet. In this method of execution, victims were hung upside down and separated into two with the help of a saw while they were conscious. The method has been used in Asian and European history. The reason the victims are hung upside down is that blood rushes into the brain so that they feel the pain more when they are slaughtered alive. In the Middle Ages, criminals were humiliated and punished with this method. A murder committed 24 hours ago brought her to the pages of this book. It was a long and sickening journey. Why would anyone do such a thing? What was the reason for this murder? She muttered to herself as she read, and her cigarette, which she still hadn't lit, swung from side to side on her lips. There were various reasons for murder, but in general, these would be mundane and predictable. Money, love, jealousy, revenge. No matter how complicated it may seem, the reasons would hardly change. Melissa was weary of it even when she was listing them in her mind. She faced such cases with the boredom of people doing the same job every day. In general, these were cases that were easily resolved. Still, everybody experienced those feelings. Why would some people resort to murder because of them? What kind of gene or what missing link of evolution makes people do horrible things to other people? Homo sapiens, the intelligent species of humans, she wrote in her notebook. She opened parentheses and added like a scientist who had found something new. Master killers. Yet she had found something that excited even her in this murder. Something extraordinary. Some kind of originality and dedication. Of course, she had not yet told anyone about her strange enthusiasm, and she would not. It was the first time she had encountered such a crime scene. The moment she saw the victim, who was tied up at the ankle and hung upside down, or rather the left side of the victim, as they'd been cut vertically, her stomach churned. She was now trying to keep the image out of her mind, which was a weakness, like an embarrassing memory. She cursed, as if the stench still lingered in her nose. The cigarette in her mouth fell onto her bed and settled on the white sheet. "There isn't even half the man," she said, filled with rage and fear at the thought of what people could do to each other, and frowned as usual. Deep grooves in the middle of her forehead were owed to this habit. She got printouts of medieval executions from the internet, and after throwing the booklet about torture onto her bed, she started looking at the crime scene photos, again spread out on her bed. She had forgotten how many times she'd looked at them. Lines of disgust mixed with pity on her face and then quickly disappeared. She grabbed the cigarette that fell on the bed and fastened it back between her lips. Hanging upside down, tied with a thick thread at the left ankle. The rope is quite thick. A steel hook suspended from the ceiling. An abandoned derelict church, just outside of town. Her eyes darkened because of the brutality, though she had seen evil countless times before. As she read what was written on the sticky yellow notepapers affixed to the photographs, her stomach churned. She stood up, went to the bathroom, and splashed her face with cold water. She looked in the mirror. She immediately returned to the bedroom, and this time, she lit the cigarette. She threw the lighter onto the nightstand next to her, and ignoring the sound of the lighter hitting the nightlight, she continued to look at the photographs strewn across the bed. The coroner said that this brutality took place after the victim was killed. He'd seemed excited, as if he was explaining something she didn't already know. If it was done while the heart was beating, it would be bloody everywhere, as the heart still pumps blood. The symmetrical structure of the human body meant that the killer had been able to split it in half so precisely. "This is laser work," Someone had suggested an idea, with a dirty grin. Melissa had stared at him for a few seconds without even a single gesture on her face. And she'd really enjoyed watching his disgusting grin disappear rapidly. She wouldn't tell anyone about that either. Melissa's partner, Faroz, had been inexplicably relieved that the male victim's sexual organ was not cut. "Are you sick?" She'd hardly managed to stop herself from asking, contented with staring at his black and jelly-rich hair, a sort of Valentino wannabe, combed back. The identity of the victim was not yet known. There were no fingerprints left at the scene. The only clues were the bizarre shapes drawn on a 25-centimetre wide rectangular baked clay slab. A plate? A strange bowl with strange words written in it. Words drawn on the wall, divided into squares and repeating themselves in order, and a meaningless mark on a strangely drawn picture of a tree. From the fact that the words were written in such a way that they were clear and legible, the team concluded that the murderer had plenty of time, perhaps coming to the scene earlier and preparing it in advance. Melissa understood that before anyone else the first time she saw it. She was also the first to notice the clay bowl, all right next to the victim. The killer wanted those things to be seen and left them on purpose. These were not pieces of evidence. It was a killer's show. She felt utterly despondent. She remembered hearing a voice confirming her thoughts in her mind. While she was anxiously checking that no one else had heard the voice, Faroz suddenly said, "Hieroglyph." He hadn't noticed that Melissa rolled her eyes, and he'd approached her with that wide, permanent smile on his face.